Welcome to Rising Up for Justice, a special weekly series presented by Rising Up with Sonali, an independently produced, subscriber-supported program syndicated to radio stations, free speech TV, and podcast platforms. I'm SonaliKolhatkar, host and executive producer. Our nation and our world are overrun by billionaires and bigots, but they are few and we are many. On this series, exclusive to subscribers of Rising Up with Sonali and viewers of Free Speech TV, you'll hear conversations with change makers in the movements for social justice. And together we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of values, strategies, tactics, narratives, and building power. This week on Rising Up for Justice, Joyce Ajlouny joins me. She's a Palestinian-American activist and social justice leader. For the past decade, she has led the American Friends Service Committee as their general secretary. AFSC is a Quaker organization that's been working across the United States and around the world for over a century. Welcome to the program, Joyce.
Thank you for having me.
So I was so fascinated with the work that AFSC did when I first heard about it many years ago. As a young journalist, I've been following AFSC's work for many years, and it was my first exposure to a Quaker organization. Friends is a word that's very unique to that organization. Tell us, how do you introduce, for people who've never heard of AFSC, or maybe you've just heard of it but don't really know that much about it, what does it do? What are its main goals?
Right. We are a 109-year-old Quaker peace and social justice organization, and we work to challenge systems of violence, of inequity, of exclusion and oppression. We're grounded in that Quaker belief that there is that of God or the divine in every person, and so that every human being deserves dignity and respect and the opportunity to flourish. So AFSC works globally. We have robust programming in the United States, but also globally in about 17 countries. And we work on a peace building agenda, migration justice, economic justice, and human rights. So the work is has been ongoing for a long time, and it changed through the years, but it's really rooted in what our faith is calling us to do, which is to alleviate suffering, but also not to stop at suffering, but to look at the root causes and confront the systems that create and build the unjust systems around us.
And so I think at 109, this might be the oldest organization that I've ever profiled on this program. And I've talked to groups, people who have involved with groups that have been around for 40, 50 years. 109 years is a very long time. The U.S. just marked its 250th anniversary. So for a good portion of this country's, existence as the United States, AFSC has been doing its work. What was that history? How was it founded 109 years ago? And tell us a little bit of the founders and their story. Often there's fascinating stories linked to why someone finds a spark and is moved to start something like this.
Yeah, I'd love to speak about our history, because our history is just it's so courageous and inspiring, and I think we keep reminding ourselves of that legacy so we can continue to build on it. So AFSC was founded in 1917 by Quakers during World War I. Its original purpose was to provide young men who were conscientious objectors with alternatives to military service, and that aligned a lot with our commitment to nonviolence and our testimony of equality and peace. And so from the beginning, AFSC sought to put faith into action. And so we started building a program in Europe where these young men would go and support communities who were struggling from World War I, right? Whether they were driving ambulances or feeding children, etc. And then during World War II, we did the same, and we were instrumental in establishing a rescue and relief mission during World War II and the Holocaust, and instrumental in ensuring the rescue of thousands and thousands of Jews from Europe. But then our founders thought, we also have issues at home, and so we need to also build some programming at home, and so that history moved to also the United States, where we were looking at how injustice plays in our country. We stood against Japanese internment, and we were instrumental in ensuring that that internment and the detention of Japanese immigrants is halted. And so we stood by, the racial justice movement and the civil rights movement. The history is long. I wish I had more time to talk about it, but for over a century, that mission expanded to doing the work that we do today, which is around peace building, humanitarian relief in some cases, racial justice, economic justice, etc. And in 1947, along with British friends, AFSC received the Nobel Peace Prize and accepted it on behalf of Quakers worldwide in recognition of our work for peace and reconciliation and humanitarian assistance, especially during World War II.
That's really remarkable. Let's go to the way in which your organization actually achieves its goals. What are the strategies that you use? Some organizations lobby Congress, others are purely grassroots, others are simply coalitions of other organizations. So what does AFSC do to achieve its goals? And these are big goals.
Yes, they're big goals. And I think we are uniquely situated. I think we do all of the above. We do a little bit of everything. And I think that's what makes us so unique. And so we say we're a systems change organization. So everything we do is aimed at challenging and transforming the policies, the institutions, the practices, the narratives that perpetuate injustice. And so that work that's grounded in our Quaker values and beliefs requires both for us to work on personal transformation, but also on structural transformation. And we use multiple strategies, like you said, that they all enforce one another. So we have a lot of direct services, right? We are in the United States, our staff are on the front line working with communities, immigrant communities, those struggling from economic injustices, etc. Internationally, we support humanitarian responses and relief efforts. But also we're in DC, and we have an office in DC that does a lot of the organizing and campaigning and in public education. Our national level staff do a lot of work on coalition building and movement building and research. So there are a lot of different aspects of the work that we can bring together. As of late, our staff adopted, especially after this administration, a framework of protect, resist, and build. And that is sort of how we engage with communities that are vulnerable, that are resisting harmful policies and systems, is through that framework of protect, resist, and build. But I think that for us, the strategy has always been, and if you read our history, you'll see multiple examples of that, is that we want to be able to do the courageous work and speak truth to power, no exceptions, naming atrocities, naming perpetrators, holding them accountable. In fact, the term speaking truth to power was coined by AFSC, and we published our first pamphlet with that title.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. I had no idea. A lot of people don't know that. I feel like, it's something. Bayard Rustin was part of that team that worked on that pamphlet, and I believe it was 1952 or 1953. But that's, so we hold that, that concept of speaking truth to power dear. And I think we're able to do that because, we put principles first. And we want to be on the right side of history. So it means that we sometimes, have to take risks. For example, we do not accept government funding and U.S. government funding, and with that, it gives us sort of the leverage and the opportunity to also hold our own government accountable without strings attached and without worried whether or not we will lose our funding. And so that puts us in a very good place of using our faith, our courageous stands, to continue holding our government accountable as well. So we invest a lot in grassroots leadership. We have, for example, the Emerging Leaders for Liberation. It's a wonderful program that brings young people together, and we train them on social justice, and we give them a little stipend so they can do their own projects. So there's a lot of investment in building leadership and partnerships, because we know that that change process takes a long time, and that we need to ensure that we are building those capacities. And so we don't just do relief work for the sake of relief work. We always connect it to advocacy. We see ourselves as bridge builders. We see ourselves as connectors, as facilitators, as conveners. And so that is, but I think without the work we do in community, that work on advocacy becomes more challenging. So because we build that that confidence in the messaging that we're bringing from the communities to policymakers, etc. So that it's important for the credibility of our advocacy that we are rooted in these communities as well. So it's all connected, and the fact that we work both internationally and globally, I think, and in the US, is also quite unique, because we're able to build those connections because we know that struggles are interconnected, and that it's important that we connect. For example, we've been talking about anti-authoritarianism as of late in the United States, and we've been bringing the voices from our staff in other parts of the world who have been dealing with authoritarian regimes, and how they have, what they have done, the strategies that they've used to circumvent some of the challenges that they are facing. So it is just wonderful that we're able to build those international connections.
And what are some of the concrete wins that you can point to that AFSC has achieved? And of course, I don't mean for you to necessarily go back over the 109-year history, but just even in the last few years, it's tough. There aren't that many wins on the left, it seems. And sometimes it feels wrong to even ask that question, because, it doesn't mean we stop fighting if we don't win. But are there concrete things you can point to say, because the AFSC was leading on this issue, we, won XYZ?
Yeah, it's hard to take credit for anything in terms of peace and social justice work as a sole organization, because, we are also realize that this work requires collective action, it requires coalition work, movement work. And I think that the fact that we have been relentless about it, that we have been in spaces where we have seen change happening. For one, on the Palestine issue, we have been one of the main organizations doing Palestine advocacy work, and we have been also instrumental in convening Palestine advocacy groups together, so we can strategize together, so we can take some, lessons learned from the past, and how we can build on that, and so we have taken that role to some extent, and we've seen shifts in how the American publics perceive Palestinian rights and Israel and its actions and genocide in Gaza. And so we've also seen shifts in Congress, and that are quite welcomed. It's we would not have ever dreamt just last year that the shifts we are seeing today in Congress are where they are today, with so many senators. As of late, they voted for a bill to block aid for military support to Israel. All of that, I believe, is part of that collective effort of all of us persisting in these efforts. So we are in spaces where we work because we are state-based in a lot of different parts of the country. We've seen a lot of wins, like in New Hampshire. We had one of the detention centers for immigrants closed because of our efforts and our staff's efforts. And I can go on and on with wonderful wins around, for example, divestment. We lead the research effort and a lot of the campaign efforts around divestments, holding corporations accountable in terms of those corporations that are profiting from those harmful and oppressive systems. And if you go to our website, to our divestment page, you will see an endless list of wins of those organizations, institutions that have decided to divest. For example, even Microsoft divested in one way because it blocked the Israeli military from using its software. That's a huge win. And the New York hospitals divested from Palantir, and so they will no longer use their software. And so that, to us, are these small wins here and there. They make up the collective.
So storytelling, it seems, is a critical part of the work that you do, especially, when I think about something like an issue around Israel-Palestine. So much of it is culture shifting, and in that particular case, of course, it was the genocide itself that shifted the culture, and it shouldn't have taken a genocide for people to change their minds on it. But how does AFSC center, if at all, narrative and storytelling in your work?
Yeah, I think that is, of course, we always say that we want to ensure that our stories, they help connect across differences, and so people can understand the impact of the injustice and how it feels for a particular person. And so we always seek to elevate those voices directly impacted by conflict, by displacement, by discrimination, economic hardships, etc. We don't want to speak for them. We want their voices to be out there. So it's definitely a strategy that we use. If you go to our website, afsc.org, you will see all sorts of human stories highlighted from the different parts of the country and the world where we work. But we also, it's very critical that we don't paint those who are struggling with injustices as victims. And so that's why you will see and read a lot of stories about resilience and what's possible and resistance, because people also need to understand not just what's wrong with the world, but also imagine what's possible, and that these people who are struggling are artists, and they are scholars and thinkers and teachers, and they are creators, and it's important that we focus also on that part of their humanity as well.
I love that you said that. My program is often solutions oriented, and people are more likely to remain engaged in the work of justice if they can see that it is possible to make a difference, because it's easy to get down in these days, especially.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's easy to fall into sort of despair when you see also the level of atrocities, and we are seeing the scale and the pace of these global crises, that crisis at home and abroad is immense, and from authoritarianism to attacks on dissent and speech, and increasing hostility towards marginalized communities, etc. It's easy to fall into that fear and division and despair. But what we are trying to do is to say that we have seen failures in our systems, but we also have solutions. And I think, and it calls, I keep talking a lot about what that the moment is asking us. These are extraordinary moments and they require extraordinary solutions. And to me, that means that we need to maybe start doing things differently. I always say that that institutions and organizations like ours were probably built for a different era, and that this moment requires us to think differently and act more boldly and take risks and think about different strategies of non-cooperation and bold actions. Like I just said, divestment, and even using our court systems and litigation. I'm reminded of one author, activist, blogger who I follow, Frederick Joseph, who said something along these lines, that if your advocacy doesn't cost you anything, like sleep, like your career or relationships, then it might not be advocacy, it might be performative, because advocacy, real advocacy, disrupts. And I love that, because I feel that that's how we need to start thinking differently. And at AFSC, we have been looking at different ways of responding, even to immigrants and injustices. Yes, we've doubled down on our Know Your Rights training and protecting immigrants and all that. But we've also said, what are the real needs of immigrants? And we discovered that it's really economic, and so we started a program of cash assistance to migrant families, and we are supporting bond funds, things like we have not done before. And so I think that the moment is calling us to go beyond what we're used to and think about different ways of responding.
So after more than a century of work, AFSC is still pivoting and being nimble. That's pretty impressive. How can people hook into the work you're doing? How can they connect with your organization if they are looking to be a disruptor and to ally with an organization that has this history and track record? What are the ways in which you engage with the public?
Yeah, there are so many ways. I mean, we have an amazing website, first of all. I just want to say afsc.org is constantly changing, and there's always new things to link to and to take action with us on. So there's always a number of areas where your viewers can connect. So there are a lot of local campaigns. We have, for example, on Palestine, an action hour for Gaza. We started it since October 2023, every Friday at noon. And if your viewers go to afsc.org/action hour, they are able to register. And then they go on this call at 12 and they learn a little bit about what's going on there from our staff, because we do have staff in Gaza and we have ongoing work there. And they learn a little bit about that, but also then they do collective actions together. They call their Congress, we give them the script, the story. But it's a wonderful way of having, every week we have over 150 people join the call. It's really amazing. And it's been ongoing. And we also have an apartheid-free community and a pledge for different organizations and communities to join that apartheid-free community and join those efforts, because they come with several commitments. We also have a lot of work, as I mentioned before, on divestment and the power of economic activism, because we believe that accountability must extend beyond governments and to corporations that profit from those oppressive systems, including occupation, genocide, detention, prisons, etc. And so the Action Center for Corporate Accountability, ACCA, ACCA, the Action Center for Corporate Accountability is a center within AFSC that does a lot of that work. They do a lot of the research around which corporations are complicit. They expose those corporations. They promote divestment and responsible investment through campaigns. At the moment, the two main campaigns are Boycott Chevron and Purge Palantir, for example. and divest for Palestinian rights. And so viewers can go and if they run an organization or they are students on campus, they can actually go and promote divestment within their own. And lastly, I think I want to say something about our recent actions on 4th of July. Myself, along with so many other AFSC and Quaker communities, we joined the People's Parade in Philadelphia, and we launched the Declaration of Resistance. And it's nice that we launched it in Philadelphia, the birth of the United States, and where our Declaration of Resistance is also rooted in that protect, resist, build framework. And we're inviting people to commit to protecting those most at risk and resisting the policies and practices that undermine human dignity and democracy. And so if your viewers go to afsc.org/resist, they can sign the Declaration of Resistance and join us in so many actions around the country where they can find a way to do meaningful actions with us. And so, again, there are a lot more on our website, a lot of ways that folks can go and engage with us.
I love that. Declaration of Resistance is a great title. Joyce, give out the website for AFSC and any of the social media handles where people can also follow along with your work.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the handles memorized, but I'm sure or AFSC, they will come up, but our website is afsc.org.
I want to thank you so much, Joyce, for joining us. And it looks like those social media handles are AFSC_ORG. And we'll also post links to those from our website. Thank you, Joyce, for your time.
Of course. Thank you, Sonali.
My guest has been Joyce Ajlouny, General Secretary of the American Friends Service Committee. And this is Rising Up for Justice. I'm SonaliKolhatkar, host and executive producer of this weekly half-hour series, exclusive to viewers of Free Speech TV and subscribers of my long-standing program, Rising Up with Sonali. Find out more at risingupwithsonali.com.